Hey YouTube, so I upgraded my kiteboard probably about 3 or 4 months ago from an old F1 Unique to an F1 Carbon Trax. I just wanted a more high performance board to start learning bigger tricks and stuff like that. So yeah, I thought I'd do a quick review on it and tell you what I like, what I'm not a huge fan of, and hopefully it helps someone else out there.
There she is. Yeah.
Yay!
There we go.
I think that should be good. So obviously this is the board, carbon board. I believe it's got a wood core with just a carbon coating on the outside. Then just regarding the actual, build structure of the board itself. So it's just got one set of channeling. I don't know if you can see that. No channeling on the edges. No channeling on the edges. Sorry, it's a bit dirty. But just there, that's better. You can see that, just that single channeling down the middle. Then another key factor of this board that F1 put a lot of emphasis on was this, what do they call it? The HRD rail. So essentially how this works is, the theory is, I don't know if you can see that there, but it goes from thin to thick, and then thins off in the middle again, and then obviously goes thick and then thin towards the end of the board again. The theory behind that is, as the board goes through the water like that, this thicker rail almost creates like a surfboard rail, and it goes through the chop a little bit easier. And then obviously the thinner rail in the middle of the board just helps you hold your edge a bit better. Then another interesting thing is the ends of the board are really thin and quite flexible. Stiff, but not rock solid, if that makes sense, as you would expect with a typical carbon board. And then the last thing was the foot straps, and the handle. So I'm a big fan of these Cabrina H1 foot straps. Just very simple single screw system. I don't know if you can see that there. And then that's just a handle I made myself out of a bit of PVC pipe, which extremely strong, and it works super well. So diving into the things I like, things I don't like. The first thing to mention about this board is it's insanely light. I've felt other boards in actually smaller sizes, and this is significantly lighter, and you can feel it as well in your riding. Then the second thing to mention is, I'm pretty sure it's because it doesn't have too much channeling, so it's very flat sides to the board with just that single channeling down the center. Super fast, super fast board. And the upwind ability is actually it's actually unbelievable. I can probably go, in light wind, I can probably go maybe like 5 to 8 degrees upwind more than everyone else. And that, in my opinion, was just the board. Slightly bigger, with that, very fast, very resistance-free design. Yeah, upwind ability is unreal. Now with that very fast, resistance-free design, just with the single channeling in the middle, no channeling along on the sides of the board, you do get a bit of a skatey feel, like very agile and stuff like that. You don't get that insanely locked-in feel as you would with something like a Nash Monarch or something like that, with huge amounts of channeling on the side. But what I like about it is, if you can control that speed, super fast and insane amount of pop. That's another thing actually I forgot to add on my little notes over there. Insane amount of pop. It's literally like a springboard. I can almost pop over anything I want, really, which feels fantastic. You just feel, yeah, you can just hop over anything. Any little obstruction, hop right over it, no issue. Another thing following on from that is the carving ability to get a very vertical jump. I know this is I think it was performance freestyle focus board. So ideally you want that, big carve and very vertical jump. And it definitely does do that, that's for sure. Also, I don't know if you can see that, but the bottom of the board's kind of like this. It's kind of like concave. and that makes it, or I found it makes it super good when riding flat as well. Just from a speed perspective, when riding flat, super controllable, and I'm 90% sure it's from that concave in the board like that. Then just touching on the things I'm not a huge fan of. The first would be just the way that they've designed this. It does tend to, in my opinion, scratch really easily. I would classify myself as very careful with my gear, and just leaving it, I don't know if you can see that, but just leaving it floating on the edge of some sort of lagoon or something like that, just it bobbing in the water like that, scratch the bottom quite significantly on the sand. So it is very soft, but if you're not a beginner and you're careful with your gear, no issue really. I did dig it into the sand. I did dig the rail into the sand once, quite hard. I don't know if you can really see that there, but so I did dig the rail into the sand a little bit, coming up onto the beach. But if you're just careful with that and try not dig the board into too much cuck on the beach, then then it shouldn't be an issue at all. And I think to get the board so light, they don't put too much laminate on it, so it does make it a little bit more vulnerable to scratches and stuff like that. But the light weight of, or the weight of the board is insanely light. Then regarding the price, I don't know the exact price on this. I'm not sure how that's changed to when I bought it, but I'd say it's probably on average for a carbon board, and carbon boards are expensive. So quite expensive board, but definitely worth the cash if you're looking to push the limits, I guess. Same as any carbon board really. Then the last thing I find that I'm generally not a huge fan of, specifically with regards to this thicker rail, I feel like often in the flat water it feels super smooth and super good, but as soon as you want to start cutting through or going through a bit like gnarlier chop, I find it does tend to bounce through the chop instead of actually just cutting through it. But super, it's almost like super soft and super, but almost bouncy at the same time, I guess. I've actually been able to try a Nash Monarch, and I really felt like that cut through the chop and didn't bounce over it. So it's a bit of a different style, I guess, to get used to. But once you get used to it, good carving for sure. You can feel that, especially up a nice smooth kicker, you can feel that thing carve like an absolute beast, especially when you're at speed. So then the last thing I wanted to mention was with regards to the actual accessories on the board. The fins I think are pretty average. Just your average kiteboard fin, nothing too special to note about them. They do tend to wear a little bit when digging them through the sandbars and stuff like that, when it's shallow. But any fin would wear like that. Regarding the straps, these are Cabrina H1 foot straps. I'm personally not a huge fan of the F1 straps. I've heard this from a lot of guys on the beach as well, and from my personal experience. Firstly, they're super soft. They crack quite easily. Also, another thing that a lot of the guys said was, and I experienced this as well, is your feet tend to push through out the front of the foot strap. So after an awkward landing, your foot would end up pushing right through like that, and it's just exceptionally annoying. And then the guys would end up having to tighten them super tight to be able to just hold their feet in the foot straps, and then you can't do 1-footers and board offs and stuff like that. So I'm not a huge fan of the F1 foot straps. They're expensive and your feet push through. So I got the Cabrina H1 straps. Then regarding the handle, in my personal experience, the F1 handles are also very soft. I had a bit of an awkward landing where my foot popped out of one foot strap. I couldn't get it back in, and when I landed with my foot on the handle, and it just snapped like it was nothing. And I've had it as well where being super overpowered, and you kind of just hang on to your board to wait for the gust to end, and I can see the handle bending. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the F1 handles. So I just made mine out of a piece of PVC, super strong, super durable, and obviously super cheap. Last thing to mention, not that it makes too much of a difference, but this board looks so sick. It looks like an absolute animal, I'll be perfectly honest, with the black with the little orange colors on the side and then the orange rails. I think it looks so sick. Just another thing, actually, a lot of guys are concerned with these darker colored boards that you can't see them. If you crash and you end up far away from your board, you can't really see where it is. I honestly didn't have a problem with that. I almost felt that a black board is actually easier to see than, let's say a yellow board, to be perfectly honest. Especially in the surf, where obviously, the foam makes bubbles, and obviously that's white, and then you got this big black contrasting board, sticking out in the surf. So I actually didn't find it a problem at all. Now I'm leaning more towards the darker colors in terms of, going in the surf and being able to see your board in the surf. So yeah, that's just something else that I thought might help you as well. And then lastly is just with regards to, the general riding style of carbon boards. I obviously came from an old, more flexible F1 Unique, which is more of like a free ride beginner board. So very forgiving board, goes through the chop easily, doesn't work your legs. But switching to a carbon board, I definitely felt the difference in terms of the stiffness of the actual board. That can obviously be expected. So you kind of have to, well, when I was learning, it was that style where you got the front leg very straight, and then you suspend with that back leg. And with the carbon board, I felt that you can really hold your edge properly if you kind of suspend with both legs, and you kind of in a more of a, let me actually show you. What actually helped me like 10 or 20 fold in terms of my kiting ability was just moving my straps slightly straighter. So originally, my riding style before the carbon board was very this, so with a very straight front leg, and then all the pressure getting absorbed by your back leg. But what I found is moving your straps a little bit straighter, and then kind of doing a more aggressive stance like that. So you absorb the shock with your legs, and not relying on the board to absorb the shock. And then when you want that pop, the pop is there because your board is so stiff. So yeah, that helped me tenfold, and hopefully it'll help you as well. Hopefully that helps you. That's pretty much everything I wanted to mention. Great board, definitely recommend giving it a try. Super light, super fast, insanely good upwind, and looks cool. So yeah, anyway, hopefully that helps, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.